Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Impact Wrestling Report for the 29th of April, uh, 2021. Not a bad show, not a great show. Feeding off the Kenny Omega thing is necessary, but at the same time, are you really building your own company if you're feeding off of them on a continual basis? Some new people here, which is good. Other people winning matches they shouldn't, which is bad. Overall, not a bad show, but certainly an interesting run with some new talents, and they're talking about bigger talents at Slammiversary and stuff in a couple of months. Um, so then we open with James Storm with Chris Sabin defeating Diener with Violence by Design on the BTA pre-show deal. Show opened with Impact roster wanting answers from D'Amore, who's going to challenge Kenny Omega for the championship. He said he'll address the situation out in the ring. Down Callis comes out, tells D'Amore that Omega wasn't in the building, but he'd make a Zoom appearance. Have we come to that now? Anyway, so D'Amore gets angry and says that Omega must adhere to the contract and be present. He'll be stripped of the title and suspended. Callis said he'll take care of it. D'Amore announced that Rich Swann lost in a one-time match and had no rematch clause. Why? So he wasn't getting a title rematch. Why? Instead, there'll be a series of qualifiers leading to Under Siege, where the winners will face off in a six-way match. Again, why? With the winner becoming number one contender. If Omega doesn't make it to the arena by the end of the show, the six-way match at Under Siege will be for the championship. D'Amore then books the first match on the spot. Why a sixth person? Why not one-on-one? Just why? Anyway, so we open with Chris Bay defeating Jake Something in the number one six-way qualifier. Speed versus power match, very basic. Bay controls action early, but it's back and forth. Something gets some near falls. Rahet Raju grabs on Something's leg for a reason that is not defined by anybody, including the announcers, to distract him and allows Bay to drop kick him and schoolboy him with the feet on the ropes for the win. This is a wonky finish and not a good way to start, with presumably more eyes on Impact than normal. Callis talks with Omega on the phone, told him to take a jet back to Impact. Walks up to Callahan, who told Callis that if Omega showed up, he was targeting and reclaiming the title. Gia Miller interviews Taylor Wilde about having her first match in more than a decade. She said she's happy and ready, but Tennille Dashwood interrupts, talks about being her partner. Wilde rejected, saying she's here for the title. W. Morrissey, otherwise known as what used to be Big Cass, defeats Sam Beal. Morrissey cuts a promo pre-match. Says the wrestling business is full of bad people, and he's not afraid to accept that he's one of them. Beal doesn't get in any offense. Morrissey wins with a powerbomb. I've never been a fan of Morrissey in the ring, but he is a charismatic and big guy. They could do something with him. Would love to see him go with Madman Fulton at some point. Miller interviews Kimber Lee about the Knockouts champion, Deanna Purrazzo and Susan about Wilde's return, and Lee says tonight Wilde would make her return and she would beat her easily. Purrazzo told Lee that she's taking the night off and that Lee and Susan could take care of Wilde alone. Miller asked Purrazzo why she wasn't going to be out there. Champion lashed back, saying that she's not running away from Wilde. Havoc walks up, gets in Purrazzo's face, but doesn't actually speak. Then Miller interviews Willie Mack, too many interviews, about being pinned by Morrissey at Rebellion. Mack said he doesn't understand what the big deal is and what the problem is with him, but he wants to fight. He'd be happy to fight him. He challenged him to a match at Under Siege. These unnecessary monthly network previews are foolish. Anyway, Taylor Wilde defeats Kimber Lee with Susan. Wilde makes a return to the promotion, saving Dashwood from a 3-on-1 beatdown at the hands of Purrazzo, Lee, and Susan, so I guess she's a babyface. Lee starts the match by catching Wilde by surprise with a drop kick, gains control of the match. A couple of minutes later, Wilde recovers and makes a short comeback. Wilde is running, crazy, but she goes for a sharpshooter. Lee manages to block her, takes her down, and starts working on her knee. After some minutes, she gets heat. Lee started getting a little cocky and into the striking exchange that ends up causing her to lose. Lee regains control, but when she went to the top senton, Wilde dodged it, hits a codebreaker, and locks on the Indian Deathlock for a submission win. Not the best of returns for Wilde, but putting her in there with a cold match probably wasn't the best of ideas. I would have given her an angle first. Match was okay, but not a showcase the way it was intended. Post-match, Susan attacks Wilde. Dashwood makes the save. Wilde said that she didn't need any help. X Division champion Josh Alexander just feels weird. Defeats Ace Austin with Madman Fulton to retain the belt. Alexander wins the title at Rebellion, pinning Austin. Match that also includes TJP. Austin got the automatic rematch clause. Alexander starts the match pretty dominant. Mat work and striking combined into something decent. He takes Austin down, keeps him at bay pretty easily. Austin then relies on speed, starts dodging Alexander to take out his leg. Alexander goes down. Austin then starts going after his back and neck pretty aggressively. Alexander gets to his feet, slowly makes a comeback, ending with a desperation chaos theory. He rocks Austin pretty well. Alexander and Austin trade strikes. Former star chasing the ankle lock known as the Divine Intervention. Austin gets a near fall after a pretty stiff kick, but Alexander comes back and fights him on the apron, drops Austin, and dodges a Madman Fulton attack. Finish sees Austin with a bunch of offense, but takes himself out with a moonsault. Goes for the Divine Intervention, does Alexander. Alexander blocks him, hits a senton bomb on the back, and locks in the ankle lock, and Austin taps out. Austin still, to me, the best pound-for-pound talent in the Impact brand, and sad to see him go away. Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown basically talk about the international talent that's coming in, and they're coming for Alexander, apparently. Callis is approached by Swinger and Hernandez. They owe him money for the Swan versus Omega bet, but if Swinger could get him a driver to pick up Omega, the debt was paid. Callis put faith in Swinger, and this is probably not a good idea. Miller interviews Jordana Grace and Rachel Ellering about winning the Knockouts tag titles. Grace said Ellering was the missing piece to her win of the titles. They basically kiss each other's butt. Kiera Hogan, Tasha Steelz interrupt them and said Ellering is the real star. They had defeated Grace many times. Ellering could have won the match by herself. Hogan and Steelz claimed the rematch clause at the Under Siege Network preview. Matt Cardona defeats Brian Myers in a number one contender six-way qualifier match. Myers defeats Cardona at Rebellion and takes advantage of the knee following radio silence, and Cardona has his knee bandaged up here a few days later. Match starts with Cardona trying to jump his former friend, tries to get him with a dive. Myers kicks him in the knee and immediately takes him down. Myers focuses on the knee the entire match. A little bit of hope spots and fighting through the pain. Cardona looks kind of like a hero here. Myers gets the advantage, kicking the knee again. Regains control, starts going for pins. Can't keep Cardona down. Myers goes for the roster cut. Cardona catches him with a radio silence out of nowhere for the win. And it really kind of looks like a awkward thing. He advances to the network preview six-way. Eric Young with Violent by Design cut a promo about Dino losing to James Storm. But they'd also lost to Storm before. Um, and he basically says that Rhino will represent them and represent Violent by Design at Under Siege. Um, and so El Plastico or something like that. Anyway, I've got to grab my phone, so I will be right back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Incoming Keen Chat request.
Anyway, Brown and Striker rundown matches for next week, and we get other qualifiers: Rahet Raju, Trey Miguel, Rhino and Saban, and Moose and James Storm. Kenny Omega has not made it to the arena and minutes away from being stripped of the title. And then Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan review their feud that's gone on way too long and go to a no contest in another qualifier. Callihan lost his last man standing match against Miguel at Rebellion. Still manages to go. Basic match. They have, been through so much that it's kind of interesting. Anyway, Edwards takes control. Both guys are former world champions. This is a very basic match. Edwards takes control. Callihan cuts him off, works over his head, chasing the package pile driver. Edwards makes a comeback and hits a stunner and a top rope Rana. Gets a near fall with a blue thunder bomb. Right before time runs out, Omega and the Good Brothers run out. They take down Edwards with the Magic Killer and prepare to hit the V trigger on Callihan, but Finn Juice makes the save. Juice Robinson and Dave Finlay gets taken out due to being outnumbered. Callis said that if they wanted to be the champions, they had to take everyone out, and Callihan versus Omega seems to be teased, and that would be horrible use of Omega. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I'm not an Omega fan, but I mean, if you're going to have the guy, use him for something good, not a guy like Sami Callihan, who has already been to the top of somewhere like an Impact, and it really didn't do much for the company at the time. Heck, they used him to put over Tessa Blanchard. Anyway, until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.